All right, guys, so we got to talk about the decline of the mainstream liberal / legacy media. And first, we got to start with the woke / liberal sports media, which is ESPN, which is apparently, allegedly, having massive layoffs coming soon. Apparently, everybody from top executives to on-air talent, their jobs are subject to be cut. I mean, even Stephen A. Smith has come out here and suggested that, hey, he might lose his job, okay? After ESPN signed him to like a $12 million contract, he might lose his job. Now, again, ESPN is facing the same problem that a lot of these legacy news outlets are facing, which is declining viewership. They're just not as relevant as they used to be. And in ESPN's case, I think it's a little bit different in regards to why they're struggling versus other outlets or legacy / liberal media news outlets, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. I think that ESPN is struggling because, let's be honest, they really don't talk about sports. They're more concerned about social justice and racism and woke progressivism and pushing a narrative, more so than actually just sticking to sports.
You are white. I am black.
White supremacy, slave trade.
Because you're white.
Racial discrimination, African Americans, black women.
White privilege. White privilege. White privilege. White people should feel a certain amount of guilt.
Black men. White analysts. Black dude. Racism. White dude. I am a black man. My blackness, a lot of racists out there.
Racist. 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 Racist.
Black guy versus a white guy.
Racist. Racist.
Race riots.
White privilege.
Black players.
Colorism, fairer skin, racism, racism, black man, white people, a black young man, white guys, black man, white girl, black people.
We don't know, but we do know this. Since you do want to bring it up, we do know this, that when it comes to MVP voting, 80% of the voters are white American. 20% are other.
The next day.
I want to correct something here from yesterday's show. When Kendrick Perkins said 80% of NBA voters for the MVP award are white, the NBA publicly announces the voters each year. And after review, it is clear the panel is much more diverse than what was portrayed by Kendrick Perkins. And we wanted to make sure that we corrected that today.
Yeah, so as you can see there, ESPN is more concerned about talking about politics and racial issues than talking about actual sports. And they wonder why they're struggling, right? Why they're facing layoffs. Well, the reason why they're facing layoffs is because, again, they don't actually stick to sports. They don't stick to what actually made the network worth watching in the first place. They want to be CNN, okay? But even CNN is struggling being CNN, right? As CNN, their ratings have failed to basically an all-time low, okay? Ever since, they were a startup company, their ratings have not been this low among the advertiser coveted demographic. Again, in nearly 30 years. This network quite literally is falling apart in front of our faces. It's a disaster. And it's funny because they probably thought that because Trump was going to get arrested, okay, which never happened, right? And I don't think it's going to happen. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen next week. But regardless, they got all excited about it because during the Trump years, their bread and butter, how they made money, was talking about Trump 24/7. Now, even though CNN's new boss, Chris Lynch, promised to be more neutral and to not be so obsessed with Trump, they have not become more neutral, and they're still obsessed with Trump. Nothing's changed. Like, for example, you got Don Lemon still crying racism, accusing Trump of racism for pushing back against the woke DA, Alvin Bragg, potentially trying to indict and arrest him. Take a look.
But Trump is raising a lot of money off of this kind of rhetoric. And I think that he does not care if he does, in fact, spin up unrest. That's part of the strategy.
Well, he raised a whole lot of money by saying, I'm going to be, insinuating that he was going to be indicted on Tuesday, right? Raise money off of that. But this is really disturbing to me because he's been doing this for a while. Yeah. And I think we can't talk enough about it, where he's been calling these prosecutors who happen to be African-American, saying that they're racist. He called Alvin Bragg a Soros-backed animal.
Yeah.
He's turning to his old tricks here of, being racist or racist adjacent, using that type of language for people.
Yeah, and as someone I covered Trump for years, if you go back and you read his rhetoric, I mean, this goes actually all the way back to the 80s. Mm-hmm. Trump has a very long history of calling black people racist.
Or dumb.
Or using, talking about Baltimore as being, filthy, rat-infested. The same thing with Congressman John Lewis's district in the Atlanta suburbs. So he has a long history of that. These are, I don't know if we can even call them codes at this point, because I think that it's pretty transparent. But they are signals to his base who are much more prone to see Black people in positions of power in particular in a racial lens, even though what the DA is doing at this moment actually has absolutely nothing to do with race. I think we've got to just stick with the facts here, wait for them to unfold, and not get distracted by what Trump is trying to do, which is to rile up his base from a political perspective on this issue.
Yeah, so again, this is why CNN, they're losing, right? This is why nobody is watching CNN. Quite literally, nobody's watching CNN. As you just saw there, Don Lemon accuses Trump of being racist, of using a racist dog whistle because he accused Alvin Bragg, who happens to be Black, of being a racist. Which is hilarious to me, right? I love when Trump plays the race card. And the reason why I love when Trump plays the race card, because what he's doing is that he's just using the left's tactics against himself, right? Because, again, to the left, any criticism of them, anything that you disagree with, when it comes to, politics with them is racism, right? So Trump is like, hey, this guy, Alvin Bragg, he must be a racist, right? That's why he's going after me, which, again, I find to be absolutely hilarious. Trump can't cry racism, but the left-wing liberal media can cry racism all day. It's racism when Trump cries racism. Again, these people, it's no wonder why nobody watches that network, okay? I mean, this stuff has got to the point where it's just silly. It's just comical. It really is. And then we have NPR, okay, who was also hit with massive layoffs. They've canceled 4 podcasts, and they've cut 10% of their workforce, approximately 100 employees. So all this stuff is not happening by, happenstance. What's happened is that, again, these woke media, legacy media outlets, people aren't watching them anymore. They either aren't watching them anymore, and also on top of that, they're probably getting less advertising revenue because the economy is not as great, okay? Despite what Joe Biden and Janet Yellen tries to say, things are just not great for these guys. But I think more so than anything, what is the biggest threat to legacy media is alternative media, independent journalists and voices out there that are covering key issues in this country in a way that a lot of these legacy media outlets refuse because it goes against the establishment narrative. And I think that Joe Rogan kind of summed this up perfectly. And I think this is probably one of the main reasons why you're seeing such a drastic drop in viewership when it comes to a lot of these legacy media outlets. Take a look.
If it was not for independent journalism, we would be in a pickle. We would be in a really bad state because a lot of people got duped by the pharmacological industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, the military industrial complex. They've been duped by so many different companies and corporations that have a vested interest in getting one narrative out. And if you can get that narrative out through the traditional pipelines of mainstream media with no one fact-checking, no one interfering, no independent journalist saying, actually, that's not true at all. Here's why they did that. This was the influence. Here's where the money is. We have emails. We can show you they were influenced. If it wasn't for them, we would be fucked. And it's one of the beautiful things about the internet today. The internet today allows people like that to thrive because these mainstream media corporations are so corrupt. They're so obviously indebted to the companies that pay for their advertising.
Yeah, so I think that Joe Rogan is onto something there. And the reason why is because you have cable news hosts like Tucker Carlson, who is the most watched cable news host in all of legacy media. And he just so happens to be the only cable news host with an anti-establishment kind of framing, okay? And that's what people want to hear, right? Like, people don't want to hear the establishment narrative because we all know that the establishment narrative is lies, right? It's a lie. And it's a lie when it comes to almost every subject that you can think of. The establishment narrative is most likely a lie, okay? And that is why independent journalists and alternative media is so important. And that's why it has become so popular because mainstream liberal media is so beholden to, again, the advertisers, and not only just the advertisers, but again, the establishment, okay? The DC insiders, okay? What Washington wants people to see and what Washington wants people to think. Again, when it comes to the Ukrainian war, okay, that's what they're pushing. When it comes to the economy, that's what they're pushing. When it comes to the pandemic, that's what they were pushing. I mean, they were pushing all types of misinformation / disinformation about various subjects, despite coming out here and claiming that, oh, we're against that. But really what they were pushing was the establishment narrative. That's all they care about. Okay? They don't care about so-called misinformation / disinformation. They just care about the establishment narrative. And again, this is why independent journalists who don't necessarily care about the establishment narrative, they care more about the truth. Okay? They're going to give you a different angle. Okay, this is why they become so popular. A lot of people are moving away from watching cable, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News to get their news, and they're moving towards the internet, right? These journalists have become such a disgrace. They become so bad at their jobs that people trust random people who, get on the internet and talk about the news and that, look deeper into it and that look at, a different side of things or have a different view of things. People trust and watch those people more than they'll watch somebody again like a Don Lemon, okay, or a Joy Reid, or a Jake Tapper, or any of these other guys that you see in legacy media, these distinguished journalists, right? That profession has quite literally gone down the drain, right? I mean, it really is a profession that I don't think you can be proud of anymore, considering how journalism has essentially become just pushing the establishment narrative, and that's it, right? And you can't question it, okay? If you question it, you're an insurrectionist, you're a white supremacist, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, you're a bigot, you're all these things, right? And again, these people, again, are not concerned about the truth. They're not concerned about actual journalism. They're concerned about, again, upholding the establishment in the current power structure in society. And again, that's the reason why I think they're failing and why alternative media is thriving. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.